So my path to becoming Judge Marilyn Zayas really begins with this little girl. So this is me at age 7. And when I was growing up in New York City, I was born in Spanish Harlem. So it was a very, very tough neighborhood. I grew up in the 70s and there was a lot of discrimination and my home life was not idyllic either. And what I used to do to cope is I would escape to the apartment had a balcony, and I would escape to the balcony and I would play with my Barbie dolls. The cement floor was painted green and I would pretend that was grass because that was my backyard. And what my dreams were to get out of New York City, to go to college because I had heard that college was the way out, and to own a house. At that time, I felt that these were big dreams. Like if I could do these 3 things, then I have made it in life. And so I really committed myself to schoolwork. I set out to go to college and I went to City College of New York. By then I was living in Brooklyn. I would literally commute 4 hours a day to my college campus. That's how intense I was that I was gonna get out of New York City and I was gonna get a degree. So all I knew was like buckle down, study, and and move on and get to the next thing. Now what's interesting is when I got to college, that's when my parents went through a separation and a divorce, and there was like a different sort of turmoil going on in the home. And it became distracting to me because I was the one that was helping my mother through the court system and helping her deal with the issues that she was dealing with, the custody of my youngest brother, who was a 10-year difference between he and I. So it became a little bit distracting for me. And I have to say that there was a moment that I seriously contemplated dropping out of college. And I had a part-time job working for the physics department. And there was a gentleman there who was actually an immigrant, and he was the janitor for the physics department. And he was the one that also set up all of the labs and broke them down at the end of the classroom. And he wound up being a mentor to me in the sense of encouraging me. I think he can tell that I was going through a difficulty, although I never opened up to him. And he was the one that would be like, Marilyn, you can do this, you're gonna be fine. You can do this, you can do this. And it's really because of him that I got through that period and stayed and finished my undergraduate. I don't think but for him, I would have been able to do it. That's one of the reasons that I'm really very motivated for students to see their full potential and not to be inhibited, not even by their own self-picture of themselves. Because I myself, growing up, did not see myself as being an attorney. Once I was an attorney, I did not see myself as being a judge. It was a growing process to get to the point of saying, yeah, I would make a great judge. I do see myself as a judge. I didn't come into it just assuming that I would be a judge. It was quite the opposite. And that's what brought me to Ohio. And I came here, and it's now been over 30 years that I came. At that point in my life as an attorney, I had become very involved in the community. A lot of people ask me, how did this opportunity unfold for you to run for judge? I was running for what's called an unexpired term. So this seat had been vacated by the judge who held the seat. He had moved on into actually another judicial seat. And even though I was a political outsider, I was told I have a terrible ballot name. I have a last name that people can't even pronounce. So I had everything stacked against me. But I will tell you that I came into this and I genuinely felt in my core that I was going to win. But there were people who took me aside and said, Marilyn, you can't win this. And sometimes I do have a little bit of adversity that comes my way, being the first Latina judge, and because I was a political outsider that ran for this. To this day, I'm still live life like things just kind of bounce off of me. We put it all in, and I won that unexpired term, which was only 2 years. And it wound up setting history because I'm the first person of Latino heritage in the state of Ohio to be elected at this level, at the appellate level. And for my appellate district, I'm actually the first person of color to be elected into this appellate district. Thank goodness others have come after me. And the reality is that when we think of a judge, what do we think of? We think of a male, and we think of a very specific demographic. That's the imagery because that's traditionally who has been a judge. The idea is to have different perspectives and different backgrounds because we have to determine whether there was an error, and sometimes we're setting new law. And if you only have one perspective and one background, then what's the quality of the outcome going to be? So when I meet with students, it's really interesting because sometimes students, whether it's the career path of being a judge, an attorney, or anything else, sometimes they look at a career path and they say, well, golly, the people who have been in this path don't look like me. Maybe they look younger than I am, or older than I am, or demographically different than I am, or they come from a different socioeconomic background than I come from. While I'm interested in this particular career path, I don't know if it's for me because I'm different. And I say, that's why you should pursue that, because they need you. They need someone that's different. They need someone that's bringing in that different perspective. And there's going to be value in that different perspective. There's so many times in our lives that people say, well, you can't do this, or this is impossible. And I think that making the impossible possible is something that comes to whether you can see it for yourself and whether you embrace it for yourself, but then you have to put in the hard work. You really have to put in the hard work. When we look 20 years from now, this world will be better because of the younger generations. They will be the generations that will really make big differences in our community. My advice would be just keep doing what you're doing. I feel confident that the future is in great hands, that you will be the catalyst of change because of the younger generations and how active and vocal it is that they are.